Hi everyone, it's Talking Family History with Michelle and Fiona, and Michelle's going to click the little button and it's going to all happen. Look
Only
at that.
about 5 times.
Yeah, well, we get there eventually, don't we, Michelle? Hey, 31st of March, a quarter of the year's already gone already. How did that happen? Seriously.
I know, it's just vanished and I'm not really happy about that. It's going way too fast.
Way too fast. And so let's make them have a really busy start to April by telling everyone about some of the stuff that's out there to keep us all occupied for this weekend.
Yeah,
and for those,
Easter.
There's some of us who are actually going to get an extra hour this weekend as well.
Yes, there's actually at least quite a few of us really, because both sides of the ditch down under will be changing. But we've also got Easter coming up, so you might want to go, oh, when it rains, because it always rains when the visitors are coming, you might be able to go and do some more research. So the latest news from the Ancestry website of the new data sets they've uploaded, they're mostly updates because they've been so busy working on other things behind the scenes. There's the UK criminal records from 1780 to 1871, so a new data set. Those of you with convicts on both sides of the planet, I must say I can find my English ones as well as my transported convicts in that group. And I did like the slave emancipation registers for Curacao, which would be really interesting if you happen to have some connections through there. And then on the whole, mostly it's updates of all the usual data sets, the newspapers, obituaries and so forth. But you'll see just hiding in there, Hampshire Church of England baptisms from 1813 to 1921. Some Canadian indexes that have been updated as well. And isn't it nice? They come right up into 1970 for the death indexes. And there's those births still stuck back at 1900, like a lot of places. Just released that I missed while we were having our break. I wanted to draw specific attention to this was the transparency report. Ancestry does these every 6 months. And the main thing is that we often hear chatter about how our information gets shared left, right and centre. And this will tell us whether it has been or not. And you'll see that there's been no international requests and no DNA has been shared on any criminal requests as well. And only 2 of the 5 valid requests for other data on trees actually went ahead. So well worth checking. And I got that link because they literally released their corporate responsibility our time yesterday. We're recording on the 31st. So you might want to have a read about the different things that they've achieved. But I wanted to pick out some of the highlights. I know that they'd reported last year that they were planning on reducing the packaging of the DNA kits and by at least 35% less packaging. I was shocked when I saw them at Roots Tech because it was the first time I'd seen the new packaging, just how small they were. And it's good to see that they've managed to do the 40% reduction. There's also the range of services they're now providing to the community, particularly the schools. So if you don't have this already at your children or grandchildren's school, it's just a request that you have to come back to your local ancestry person and you'll get an ancestry sub can be arranged for the local school. And why wouldn't you want your school to have some access and hopefully further their historical as well as family history education? So if you didn't know about it, there's plenty of information, the Ancestry website, so look for Ancestry Classroom. And Ancestry brought out or made a liaison with Genealogist, and so I'd like to go and check if there's any news there. And their news is really, it's about French collections, and they have quite a good blog post about French research. So I just added that on for those of you that may have an interest there. But so it's really interesting, the different subject areas within the French research. So it's detailed because we should never assume that any one place is exactly the same as where we already know about, because there are often very many different nuances and record sources and repositories that we need to go to. So Fee, the biggest disappointment, I can't give you a weekly update that's easy to look at, I'm sorry, on the screen, but FamilySearch.
Yeah, sure. And just thinking about France as well with those French records, remember also that DNA kits can't be sold into France. So you may find that actually going through the records is your best way of getting access to finding people. But yes, FamilySearch, such a long list of records at FamilySearch that have been updated. It just goes on and on and on. And what's really exciting to see, I think, in that list most of all, is it is so global. It's the countries that we're used to researching in. It's the countries that maybe we've never researched in because the records haven't been available before. So now you're actually getting into some small places like Cape Verde, off the side of Africa, for example. You've got Mexico, you've got Jamaica, you've got so many things, and there's even some nice little Victorian wills up the top there as well. And I must admit, I might have been looking at one or two of those in the last couple of days.
But
so that's really
sorry,
cool to see.
63 million business directories for the US. So the contrast in size and variety is huge, isn't it?
It sure is. And sometimes you find that, you know, one record set might only have, you know, I see there's one in the previous page that only had 2,622 records. In fact, if you go back, the Connecticut County Coroner's records only had 1,553. In Italy, the Venice civil registration, 1,339. So, you know, they're digitizing and looking at record sets that are small, but hey, one of those numbers could be you that you're actually looking for. So it is quite exciting to see what's happening there.
So moving on to Findmypast, they have their regular weekly Friday blog. So here's the last two since we last recorded. So they're focusing on the 1939 register this week, and last week was about military records, particularly the Boer War. And so as well as adding more about the region of Surrey or the county of Surrey in England. Fascinating read. If you have people that went to the Boer War, I know that we have some in our family that went from New South Wales. But again, lots and lots of records have been added. But as always, the newspapers, and they hadn't added a lot recently. And as I said, they're back with a bang. That added over 1.6 million last week with updating 54 titles and 4 entirely new ones. So you can see the new date ranges, all quite recent in the 20th century, which can be very helpful for our finding targeting for people to do DNA testing, is needing those current papers. But this week, the news was about the 1939 register, and I'm waiting for my dad to finally appear if they were actually recorded, because I have a sneaking suspicion he wasn't written in it at all, but we'll find that out in due course, not far away from me now. But you'll see they've added them because of another data set, and this is, we talk about AI, but it's intrinsic behind what the companies do and has been for a long time. So there's another 137 records purely because of the burial register that has become available. And then in addition, they've rolled over because of the 100-year rule, another 90,000. So you're talking nearly 250,000 records in the 1939 register if you haven't looked. And these are the only company that does these very quick, regular updates. So I recommend you go and at least search there if you haven't got a subscription currently. The other information they've added this week are burials from Sussex and lots more newspapers. So now we have another 6 new titles and an updated to 96 rather than the 54 last week, and a bigger date range here in the early 1800s right through into the 20th century.
I think one of the things to remember with these records as well, Michelle, like those Boer War records, although they may be English focused, just go and put in New Zealand, Australia, or whatever other country you're interested in, because you may find people that served in the British forces, but they have backgrounds from down under.
Exactly, or Canada or South Africa itself. Yeah. Always took whatever was a colony at the time. And over to you, Fee.
Yes, so MyHeritage is having a bit of a change around on their screens. So you may find that your search screens are looking a little bit different, but don't panic, it's all still there. Just have a look around. And again, lots of nice new collections coming in here, including also some other records from France. I'm seeing some French census records coming through here. Again, so many new records coming from lots of different places. America, Wales, South Australia hiding in there as well. And then Austria has got nearly 4.5 million records coming through for Vienna church marriages, along with some more American stuff there as well. Plus, of course, remember the MyHeritage Legacy Family Tree webinars, 24-hour genealogy webinar marathon. Did I get all that right? I have a sneaking suspicion I think I looked at it and counted it, and I think it's actually 25 hours, but maybe I got it wrong.
No, I did too.
Oh, good. So don't forget you can register. Both Michelle and I will be taking part in that, and we'll have a little reminder later on about that one.
And the link will be in the description of this YouTube video. So don't forget to have a look in the description box underneath. And then you can just click on the links, they'll be active, and you can go straight to the appropriate page. Just a short report really from the genealogist. They've done a feature article this week on tracing this particular house history. And I know that it's an interest to many people, but it's also got a bit of Welsh background in it. So I thought for some of you, this is going to be an interesting blog post to read. And so that's why I included it here. But over to newspapers. Yeah,
and one of our favourite things, we both love newspapers so much. And so here's a whole collection also coming through onto Trove. So New South Wales, South Australia, Victoria.
Victoria really got the whole lot.
Yeah, there's just so many. And there'll be something there for everyone.
And staying down in Victoria, because there's a lot happening down there, is that the Public Record Office, we often call it just PROV, they're actually celebrating their 50th anniversary. So it's not just the Rocky Horror Show that's 50 years old. And so there's a lot of events on. So if you're in Victoria or planning on heading there, you might want to go to the website and check their events list. But in terms of what they've added to their collections, they've collected a whole host of records, and the list is long, from the Royal Melbourne Hospital. They're focused on their blog post on 3 military service personnel, mostly nurses, so ranging from the Boer War and the First World War through to the Second World War, and there's a section on Vietnam. Some of it is disturbing, which is why they have their please note the preceding text describes records related to illness and death, and may be upsetting for some readers. But look, the list is huge and extensive. It's 5 or 6 times longer than this part on the slide. So if you do have people associated with any illness during the war, you might want to go and check some of these early records, particularly the nurses' diaries, because they'll mention people from all over the world, not just the people from Victoria. The other thing they have is a very nice photograph collection. And I picked this one out purely because I just think it's so fascinating to see the different ways the ships looked at different timeframes. And this is after the peak of the gold rush, but also it's around the time where there was quite a peak of immigration into New Zealand, and a lot of the ships moored and stopped at Port Melbourne before they went over across the ditch. So you can imagine this is the sort of things that they would have seen when they got there, but also the sort of ships you're looking for your people travelling across. But the other thing,
this is a jump to the left, isn't it?
It is a jump to the left.
So we're jumping over to South Australia now, where the catalogue and the website has had a bit of a refresh. And so make sure you are aware and just sort of feel your way around again, because when these things change, we get so used to how we used them in the past. It's always good just to go and explore, click on all the buttons, see what's hiding under every little thing that you can get to, and see what's hiding in the actual catalogue itself.
And like a lot of revamps, the direct catalogue link isn't as easy to find as it used to be. So it will be separately standing alone for you in the description box. And heading, now we're jumping up now over.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out how you can do that.
How many Rocky Horror things can we put into one talk? Well, we better be careful. It could get a bit fruity, so to speak. So up at the National Archives, their news was really about the things they're doing with education, and Ireland was really their peak news. For those of you interested in Lord of the Rings, of course, the Tolkien letters will be of interest to you. And the huge announcement is Ancestry's partnership with the Ministry of Defence Service Records and the National Archive, that they will start digitising those. I believe the post in detail that I read on a different site said that they expect to see some of it to start appearing at the end of 2024, and it will be a 2 to 3 year digitisation rollout project. That's huge news, because I know how long many of us are waiting for those MOD service records. But it's also a case of how we can maintain these things, because they are deteriorating, and the preservation's a key aspect. As usual, though, they have backstories on all sorts of records and acts within the organisation. So you might find it's worth checking out about treason or slave trades, the railways, the interesting pioneers of females in cabinet, even back to, Thomas Hardy and some trial. So there's a lot of treason going on in their news information at the moment. But the thing I thought, this also appeared just after we recorded 2 weeks ago, is that they're changing the way you pay for parking. So some of you may have had the misfortune to already discover you can no longer pay cash for your parking, but as of Monday that we've just preceding this recording, so if you're going in the future, you'll need real money and not cash. And there's even a whole page all about it. And upcoming will be an app, which I often find as a traveller challenging, because often you can't download the app till you get to the country concerned, but we'll see how that's going to be and if it's public. Let's make sure we ask for this to be a public app.
And so jumping back to New Zealand, this was a talk that I went to earlier this week in Christchurch at the library, and was Annabelle Armstrong-Clark, who is the City Council archivist, coming and talking about the resources that they have. And they have a fantastic collection there, and you've got the link so you can have a bit of a look. But while I was in the library, I also saw a couple of signs up in Turakiri where they do all the family history and have all the family history material, and they are doing some April talks on researching your soldiers. This bigger one here is in the main library, but there's also ones at Hallswell, South Library, and let me just find out which other one. Hallswell, South Library, and New Brighton Library have also got Finding Your New Zealand Ancestors military record sessions. So you can book all of those on the Christchurch City Library's website, look for their events page. Yeah,
because from our point of view, this month's quite an important military remembrance time because of what we call Anzac Day. For most other places, it's later in the year that these important dates are. Like in America, it's in May, the 30th of May. So we'll be talking about military on and off throughout the year. But I did go looking for some Canadian updates, and unfortunately I couldn't find anything specific that mentioned new records or releases. But what I did find was an interesting commentary that was only just posted in the last week on a Vancouver archive, and his personality. And I'm so used to Canadians being so polite, so I was kind of shocked at the bluntness, so to speak, of this guy who had a reputation for crustiness. It is well worth reading the whole list just to see what this man's achievements were. Major James Skip Matthews, and the first archivist, and being acknowledged and honoured. So a bit of a side journey, but it's often interesting to read how other people perceive archives and the value of them and the different things they collected within them. And this one, I know you didn't listen to, Fee, but go for it.
No, I just haven't had a chance to listen to this one yet. It's been a busy week. So this is Radio New Zealand, but I believe it's also been broadcast in other radio stations through Australia as well, discussing the same case about the use of mitochondrial DNA to identify a World War II soldier, I believe.
So no, he was actually an able seaman, as it turned out. So to give you the backstory, HMAS Sydney went down with the Emden. It was the largest maritime disaster in the war. All people were lost. And sadly, this was the only body recovered, and it was recovered in a dinghy on its own. And they've never known who he was. And he was interred at Christmas Island. And it's been, I think the important thing is why we're putting this up isn't just for remembering the gentleman. Oh, look, and I'm going to cry. His surname was Clark. I can't remember his first name when they found him out. But the actual research journey that the Navy has undertaken from around 2007, when it became quite a high priority, and all the twists and turns, as well as the importance of the DNA. And I always think Catherine Ryan, who was the interviewer, is kind of like, for those of you in Australia, like Richard, who does the conversation hour. She's a really good, insightful interviewer. And I think I could recommend this to you no matter where you are on the planet, because it will give you quite an interesting backstory into all the research and all the various sources of evidence and the twists and turns along the way. So yeah.
It's interesting. World War II seems to have been featuring in my reading and my watching lately. I've just finished reading Ben McIntyre's book on Operation Mincemeat, which is also been made into a movie. And then at the weekend, we watched the movie Greyhound with Tom Hanks in it, which was about the American destroyer helping shepherd ships across the Atlantic during World War II. And I have to say, I felt like I was on the edge of my seat for the whole movie. Don't know if it was very relaxing, but it was interesting to watch.
And again, isn't it? It's putting social context into our ancestors' lives.
Sure is.
Yeah. So to DNA paint a fee, have you done anything with this?
I haven't played with this one yet. Mapping my chromosome, I just don't have time to do this. Plus, I don't have enough people to have actually, I don't have enough of the right people in my family tree to do it at this stage. Should get better soon. Must follow up. I
have read some posts of people who are very happy about these additions. So I'm sure many others who haven't got around to using all the features yet might find they'll also be very happy. But this was the tool I think I like the most. I've done a little bit of this. Have you?
Yeah, I have done it, not using the DNA painter tool, but I have looked at which ancestors I've got DNA matches from and which ones I don't. And it's not necessarily that it throws up questions, but it does have you looking at things in a slightly different way when you don't find any descendants.
And I think it helps you decide where to target test. So, you know, I need to gather more evidence from this branch of my tree, and, you know, where am I going to go and find that? Yeah.
Yeah, and is that the line that's only got one child and so there are no other descendants? You know, what is the reason I'm not seeing any other matches coming through on this line? Is there any questions or queries about the ancestry that's in the documents? You know, was the baby illegitimate or early or that sort of thing, which could question who maybe the father was of the child. I know that I've got that on one of my lines. And also, yeah, just that scarcity of people that actually descend from the wider family to come down to actually have DNA testers in the database.
Yeah, because branches unfortunately do die out, and it isn't always a case of an unexpected parentage event or an adoption or, you know, all those sorts of nuances. I put this in because it is old news, but I think, again, it was while we were having our summer break. And it was a good improvement to see a new algorithm at 23andMe. So for those of you that have tested there and just don't go back very often, you want to go back and have a play with the new family tree that they've added, because it really is a huge improvement and therefore beneficial to working with your DNA. And there was lots over at Family Tree DNA Fee.
There have been, and, you know, reading about Beethoven DNA testing, it's just like, wow, this is so cool.
And that was another interview. I listened to the podcast, right? And they talked about the multiple strands of hair samples, because he gave his hair away all the time. And how, you know, not all of them were actually real. And they had enough with good provenance. And again, it's a really good detective story. The link to the interview that I listened to will also be in the description box, because again, it's that thoroughness of verifying process that's so important. The other thing too, just on the personal note, is the women in DNA. And I put this photograph in because AI has been in the news so much. This is a fake photo. These two women never worked together. So Florence Bell, who did some of the early X-ray crystallography work, and Rosalind, who actually did the X-ray that found the structure, never worked together. But most people wouldn't know that wasn't a real image.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother discussion about what this is going to mean in the future, AI. And it's interesting, I just read an article today about some scientists that are coming out and government officials coming out and going, can we just pause this for 6 months so we can work out what this could actually mean for the country, for the world, for the economy, for jobs and everything else before it just keeps going? Yeah, it's an interesting question.
And this is my last bit of really quirky news that I came across. I'm very fond of war memorials and the reasons they're there, and they're having some major construction work for the next 2 years in the Canberra War Memorial, which is in the Australian Capital Territory. And there's 2 large cranes, and they decided to do a competition with local school children. And the kids have named them Duffy and Teddy. Do you know why it's called Duffy at all, Fiona?
Not sure about Duffy.
Okay, so Duffy is actually the name of Simpson's donkey, and Simpson is an extremely famous person within the Gallipoli campaign.
Yep. Seen those books.
Yep. And Teddy was after another person that had served, right? But what got me was the children that won the prize of the name choice were 6 years old.
And they knew about those stories. So isn't that fantastic?
Yeah. And see, I'm crying again. So I promise to cry again in April when I give my talk on We Remember.
Yeah. So yeah, as Michelle said, and we sort of alluded to earlier, we will be both at the Legacy Family Tree Webinars 24-hour marathon, along with some other friends from down under as well. I'm not sure that I'll make the whole 24 hours, but the great news is with all the Legacy Family Tree webinars, if you have a subscription, you can always go back and watch them at some other stage.
And usually
and
they're
let's
3
face
per
it,
week.
we're coming into a very big sporting, winter as usual for those of us down under. It's always good to have some webinars up your sleeve to watch at the same time as someone else is watching rugby.
Yeah.
And then the other one that you can put in your diary now is I'm speaking for in Queensland, and this one on energizing your family history methodologies, and it's on Zoom, so everyone can attend. You don't have to be in the place at the time, which is good. And I'm not the only one. There's 5 of us speaking.
Yes, I was going to say 5 speakers. I checked out the list.
Yeah.
So Pauline Cass is in there, and yeah, Sue Reed and Imogen.
Jason's down there as well from Ancestry. So yeah, we're going to give you a pretty, hopefully, bit of a kickstart.
Yeah, because of course it's a great time of year to do that just after Mother's Day and get you going. Or is it just before? I've forgotten what day of the month. Mother's Day would be the weekend before. But I think coming into winter is an important time to actually get your act together, and so you can really make the most of the weather and being inside doing stuff.
Could be a good Mother's Day present, a ticket to it.
Well, there's an idea.
Yeah, and then maybe, dinner and lunch could be provided around it.
Oh,
imagine that.
Imagine that. Now you're getting carried away.
Hey, it's great to have you all with us this fortnight. We'll be back in another fortnight's time, Michelle.
Yeah, we'll share whatever news we found over Easter and between now and then. And we hope you all have a peaceful and wonderful time with family and friends. And of course, more power to your research.
So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and we'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye.